What's going on, everyone? Happy Thursday. Welcome into another edition of GC Live. I'm your host, Jack Veltri, joined as always by former South Carolina right-handed pitcher, Yankees fan, good friend of the channel here, co-host Ethan Carter. Ethan, how we doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. How have you been?
I've been good, man. It's been busy for sure. Not gonna lie, even though I didn't cover baseball on Tuesday, decided to let the interns get a crack at it for a little bit. But yeah, man, it's been busy as always. I'm heading to Starkville tomorrow morning and ready to get this weekend rolling. It's going to be crazy, I'm sure.
Absolutely. No, I mean, you've had all the basketball portal news. You've had the spring practice. Yeah, I know it's busy time for you, but glad, we're able to take some time and get talk about the boys before they head to Starkville.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we have a lot to talk about today on the baseball side of things as the Gamecocks are headed to Starkville to take on Mississippi State starting tomorrow night, and we're going to dive into that series. We'll also look back at the Presbyterian win the other night, which was Game 7 of the World Series, according to Paul Maneri. In a lot of ways, like they're going to treat it like that. So we'll dive into all that too. But before we get rolling, got to talk to you guys real quick about our main show sponsor, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. If you're in the market to buy a home or you need help with your mortgage, but you don't know where to begin, you want to get that process started, Clint is your guy to get in contact with. He'll take you through the process step by step, help you out along the way, and point you in the right direction. He's been in the mortgage industry for a very long time now. He's a lifelong Gamecock fan. He's also a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central. So you know you're in the right hands with him helping you out. If you're interested, give him a call, 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597, or go to clinthammond.com for more information, and that will be above us here on screen all show long. All right, so let's get going here with the Presbyterian game. And in case you missed it the other day, after South Carolina got swept by Tennessee for their 7th straight loss on Sunday, Paul Maneri did come out and say that they're going to treat Tuesday like it's the 7th game of the World Series, and they're not going to hold anything back, which we hadn't gotten the chance to talk about that yet. But inherently, it's fine to feel that way. You treat every game like the World Series, in my opinion, and I'm sure you guys did back in the day when you guys were playing for College World Series. That's not the issue that he said it. It's the timing of it, and it's the fact that it comes straight after you lost your 7th straight game. Times have been tough, and then it makes people probably think like, oh, well, have you not treated these other games as such? So I know they have treated all these games equally, obviously, but the timing of it didn't sound great. So getting into Tuesday, though, South Carolina's trailing 1-0. Ethan Petrie, it's a 2-run homer, and then everything just kind of sets in motion for South Carolina to get a run rule victory. They had a little bit of help from some bad defense by Presbyterian, dropped a pop-up in the infield, a throwing error. It is what it is. You take it as it comes, and it's a win nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. Other teams have benefited from those, small miscues on our end. So, it's nice to get one of those there. But yeah, to kind of go what you're saying with Coach. Yeah, you don't necessarily want to hear that this early in the year, and especially coming off so many tough losses. Kind of we were talking about it before we popped on here that just outside the Arkansas series, we were kind of looking at some SEC numbers for the guys, and they're in the top half of categories you wouldn't necessarily expect. It just kind of goes to show that this season has been more frustrating, even more so that they, should they have won the series against Tennessee? Probably not, but they absolutely should have stolen at least. I say stolen. They should have won one of those 2 games that they were in, and just seemed to kind of come apart at the end. So it's just one of those things where it's disappointing. Sounds a little too strong, but it's as a fan base, it's not what you want to hear. That the midweek game against Presbyterian on a Tuesday before you're even halfway through the SEC schedule is a must-win Game 7. Those should be treated as the kind of dog walking that it was on Tuesday. Not gosh, we have to get this one.
And I get what Paul was saying. Again, I think we knew what he meant. But
Exactly.
it's like it's the timing that was the main issue. It's just more salt in the wound, if you will. And then you got people that are like, "Oh, so Presbyterian is South Carolina's World Series now." That's a real low, which I understand. It definitely is. And then you got the jokes after they won of people photoshopping Gamecock players on like an old photo of like a team winning the actual World Series
Right.
and stuff. So it's all good fun at the end of the day. And I think South Carolina kind of played themselves right into that, being that the joke right there. And it definitely was not well received when he said that. But again, understand it, and it is what it is. But the game itself, I mean, look, you got some good production from the middle of your order here, and that's the first thing we're going to really lead off with here is, and no pun intended, is Nathan Hall was dropped from leadoff to the 3-hole, and then Ethan Petrie was hitting cleanup on Tuesday. And Petrie's been in the middle of the order most of the year, hitting in the 3-hole. But more recently, these last 4 games before the Presbyterian game, Nathan's been hitting leadoff, and then Ethan's been hitting second. I think that's good. You need to have these two guys behind each other in the order so you can provide some thump, and that's what we saw on Tuesday when Ethan went deep and Hall scored what was the tying run at the plate on the 2-run homer before Ethan crossed. But how do you like the way that looks with Nathan and Petrie hitting 3-4 in the order?
Oh, I really like it. To your point, these are 2 most productive hitters in the lineup, and to be able to get those guys, hitting back to back, and with the possibility of multiple guys being on base. And I think some of it goes into Nathan's kind of showed more of a power stroke here over the last couple of weeks. So I think Coach probably felt like, hey, he's, guys get on, there's a chance he might put one over the wall, or, put one off the wall, and, some more extra bases. I know early in the season, it was a lot of, hard hit line drives, kind of spraying them up the middle, and, singles turning the doubles and those kind of things. But I think with Hall's recent power surge, it almost is, it's a no-brainer to, okay, let's slide these guys down 1 or 2 spots, and hopefully, we get some production at the top of the order where those guys, you have 2 guys who are hitting the ball phenomenally this year. I mean, they've got to be one of the better 1-2 punches in the conference. Have those guys hitting with multiple guys, or hitting with guys on multiple times a game versus, all right, you're relying on Nathan to lead off once. And then, how baseball goes. The early innings could go 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2-3, and then you're having Nathan lead off again. I think it's a good strategy to kind of, like I said, get those guys up to bat with guys, with guys on base.
Yeah, and I think it's the right move here to have those guys hitting 3-4. The other side of it is, and I'm going to get into a clip here from Paul Maneri in a second, kind of talking about the lineup changes. He mentioned it yesterday to me. You have to be able to find the guys that can hit the top of the order. And we'll get into who we think could potentially hit in those top 2 spots. But here's exactly what Paul Maneri had to say about the lineup changes and moving Nathan Hall down to the 3-hole, then Petrie and cleanup.
I love Nathan Hall in the leadoff spot. He's done everything I hoped that he would be, a great blend of power and speed, tough to strike out. I mean, if we had a 1 through 9 great lineup, then I'd leave him in the leadoff spot. But we're just having trouble scoring runs because, we're just not getting enough big hits. And in my opinion, he's one of our 2 best hitters on the team. And I just want to see him bat more, have a chance to bat more frequently with guys on base. And the idea that it would produce more runs. He came through last night with a big RB. It was a 2 RBI hit, I believe.
Yeah.
And kind of broke the game open for us. So, if we can figure out now 1 and 2,
yeah,
then it gives a chance for Hall and Petrie to do something, extraordinary. The North Carolina game was great where we led off with back-to-back home runs. But, solo home runs are, you're not going to win a lot of games just with solo home runs. We need multi-run home runs. And, if they're not hitting with runners on base, then it's impossible to hit a multi-run home run. So The way you beat good teams like Mississippi State or Tennessee or whoever you're playing in our league is you have to have your best players do something extraordinary. And just getting on base is not enough. They have to produce runs. And, I just think if more guys get on base in front of them, then we've got a better chance. I got to figure out who can get on base in front of them. I love.
So that's what Paul Maneri had to say about why Nathan Hall in the 3-hole, why Petrie in the 4. And he's right. The last thing he said there was very interesting. They have to find somebody to hit leadoff, to hit second. Because I do believe, and this is just without knowing what the lineup will look like this weekend, I do feel convinced that Paul is going to run out a lineup this weekend with Nathan in the 3, Petrie in the 4, to get you some opportunity to, because what we've seen lately, the North Carolina game is the perfect example. They lead off that game with back-to-back homers, and they're both solo home runs. And as he mentioned, solo homers aren't going to win you games. You get runners on base. When South Carolina tied the game there in the 6th inning or 7th inning, whatever it was, when it was 8-8, maybe it's 10-8 or 11-8 in favor of them if they had runners on base in those early innings to hit those homers. So I don't know who you put there. I asked him maybe, what about Jordan Carrion? And he agreed in the fact that, he does everything right. He makes contact. He gets on base. He doesn't really walk a ton. But that doesn't really matter when you're hitting the ball hard. The problem is he just doesn't hit for power, and that's the one thing Paul mentioned yesterday. Evan Stone's another guy I think that could potentially be a leadoff guy. I just don't know if they have a true what do you consider a leadoff hitter? Because I think everyone has different definitions of it. Some you need to hit for more power, or guys like for the Yankees, Austin Wells is the leadoff hitter right now. He's a catcher. You put Paul Goldschmidt in the leadoff spot, and he's an aging first baseman. So what the leadoff hitter has changed so much over the years to where it's the guy at the top of the order is the tone setter, the speedy guy that's is going to get on base. I think that's the most important thing is getting on base. What do you think on all that?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. You got to get on base. I don't think speed matters much as much anymore out of your leadoff guy. It's outside of Kentucky, running's kind of been not as emphasized in the game as much, especially at the college level where you don't have the pickoff rule and those things. So, yeah, and especially when you have these two just great hitters, at 3 and 4, you just want to find guys to get on base. I loved Coach. I texted you as soon as I saw the lineup card on Tuesday. I love that Coach gave Caden a shot. I know he didn't have the best game. But it's also really hard to just go out there and be like, all right, go do the thing in the leadoff spot when you've played, a handful of games all season. So I personally would love to see him get a little more run, maybe if not the leadoff spot, you put him kind of down the order and then hopefully he can get hot and then you kind of adjust things on the fly. But, as things stand, I wouldn't hate seeing Scobie lead off. Maybe I know it's a lot to ask of a freshman, but he has good at bats. He has a sense of the strike zone. He has a good sense of the strike zone for being as young as he is. So I think Scobie wouldn't be a bad one. I like Evan kind of if you're going to roll with this kind of lineup. I like Evan being in that 2-hole or Blake or someone that can handle the bat a little bit. But yeah, it's after the top two guys or after, Hall and Petrie, it really is a coin flip any given day what the lineup's going to do for you. And this is something I never thought I'd say at the beginning of the year. Henry Castmar has been swinging the bat quite well, and I would not, and maybe that's something you don't want to mess with. He's swinging it so well, you leave him where he is and let him keep producing the bottom of the order, but at the same time, maybe you try to, ride the hot hand and let him try to get on in front of those guys.
No, that's a good point. And kind of what Paul mentioned yesterday when I asked about Carrion, and this applies to Castmar too, because they've been hit at the bottom of the order. You don't want to necessarily make them go to the top of the order because Henry hit second to open the season and struggled there. And then he got moved down to the 9-hole, and he struggled a little bit more, but now he's kind of found his rhythm to where he's quietly hitting close to 300. Now, the thing about those guys is Paul said they give you a little something extra. And they're not going to necessarily blow you away like Hall and Petrie are, but they're going to do something for you that's nice. And at the bottom of the order, you need that. The way I kind of look at this is, and I think back to like Moneyball when you hear this, on base percentage. Like, who's getting on base at a high clip that you can put at the top of the order? It doesn't matter who it is, because we've seen teams that just put funky lineups out there. Again, I use the Yankees example because those aren't your prototypical leadoff guys. Those are middle of the order bats that you haven't hit leadoff because they do things that you need to get on base. Nathan Hall's on base at a .460 percentage. Petrie's leading the team with a .481 OB on base percentage. And then right after him, this is why I mentioned Carry On. He's getting on base at a .395 clip. That's very good. Surprisingly, and I don't know if it's surprisingly because he's had an all right season, not even for power much, but Kennedy Jones has gotten on base at a .421 clip.
Kennedy was someone I thought about. Some of it's the hit by pitches. That's unfortunately for him. I will say Kennedy's approach has been better over the last couple of weeks. He had that stretch. I think it was I forget. Oh, I think it was the Oklahoma series where he could not. Well, it was the first game where he just kept swinging at the first pitch, but I mean, at the same time, first pitch fastball for someone like that, lead off the game. Again, you mentioned the Yankees. I mean, the Phillies have been doing it for the last 3 years. Yeah, with Schwarber. So yeah, you get a guy that can ambush a fastball. Really at this point, there's no wrong answers. You're kind of throwing darts at the board, and like Big Red's, there's no shame button somebody gets on in front, and that's why I don't mind. We were focused on who can get on base, and then like I said, I don't mind leaving Evan, or if Blake's in the game, have Blake, somebody that can handle the bat pretty well to get those guys the second. So then, all right, now Hall and Petrie are hitting with runners in scoring position.
Blake Jackson, I think, would be your ideal leadoff hitter because I think he hit leadoff a bunch last year.
Yeah.
Top of the order. So that's your perfect tone setter because he's quick. He can get on base. But this year he hasn't really been – first off, he hasn't played a ton. But also he just hasn't gotten on – he hasn't hit for an average or anything really. But he to his credit, though, he is getting on base at a .450 clip. So that's very good. So – sample size is small, but then again, so is a lot of people on this team.
Exactly.
Kazmar is interesting, though, because he is hitting 284. He's getting on base at a .369 clip. KJ Scobie has been awesome this year. He's a little bit of a slump right now, I'd say, with his batting average dropping a bit, and he's on base at a .353 percentage. But I do agree. Like, you really can't go wrong with how you do it. And here's the question from Big Red here. If we are having issues getting runs, can we play small ball to maximize the hits that we do get? And I know Maneri said before, like way back at the beginning of the year, this isn't a small ball team. I don't agree that they need to play small ball, but they hit singles. That's not the issue. They do get runners on base. The problem is they don't hit for extra bases, and when they do, it's usually Hall and Petrie, and at that point, they're usually not on base, and that's the thing. So I don't know. I mean, how would you kind of answer this question here?
No, I mean, it's tough because like you said, it's not. I mean, I think you told me for the show we're fifth in the conference in batting average. Like we hit the ball. It is just the big hits are lacking. So yeah, I mean, to the point, of course we'd like to play, anything to maximize as much as possible, but they're kind of doing the small things good right now. But I mean, this Tennessee series was the perfect encapsulation. We did so many things well with the bat all weekend long. I say all weekend for the majority of the weekend. And we held them in check for large portions of this weekend. And then 2 swings and they've got the lead. We don't have that, and that could come from any part of their lineup. That's just not something realistically this team can expect. And you want to get guys on in front of Petrie and Hall so that you force them to be pitched to. But okay, so for prime example would be, 2-hole hitter gets on and now Hall's up. And then, Hall's going to benefit the most from this because you can't pitch around him to get to Petrie. But, say they get Hall out, and then they're definitely just going to pitch around Ethan. It is. I would love for them to be able to get some guys in scoring position, but I honestly, that hasn't been the issue with this team. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but if I had to guess, our team numbers overall are pretty good. Our numbers with runners in scoring position have to be dead last.
Yeah,
because as I said, I mean, to your point, Big Red, I think of course I would like to see it be maximized, but I think they're doing those kind of things. They just don't get the hits when guys are on, or they don't get the big hit to put up 4-run innings where it's all right. We got the bases loaded. Then there's a sac fly. That's we're playing small ball there. Sac fly gets them in. We hit them over. Maybe get another run. Where these teams like Tennessee, Georgia. I'm struggling to think of other boppers.
Alabama. I mean,
Alabama. Thank you. Where those guys are like, all right, we may hit the guy over, but like anybody in their lineup, probably Tennessee's 1 through 9, and Georgia's 1 through 9, but some of these other teams like 1 through 8 are any swing of the bat's gonna give you 3 to 4 runs, and that's just something this lineup hasn't shown that they can do. So the margin for error. This is the best way to say it, and I'll stop rambling. The margin for error for them is so small. Because they don't have the big boppers in their lineup throughout the lineup, the margin for error is so small that when you play these teams that have more explosive lineups, it is so glaringly different, so striking that we have to be perfect, and they just have to be okay. They have to be average or above average, and we have to be perfect to win these kind of games.
Yeah, and you've hit the nail on the head there perfectly, man. And I'm looking back at some of the stats here in the SEC. And again, this just goes for conference games because South Carolina as a team is hitting 303 on the year, which is the 5th best in the SEC. Another stat that really stands out, they don't hit home runs, number one. They have the least amount of home runs in the SEC. But there's a lot of teams that are kind of in that position. They do get on base at a 978 clip as a total team. So that's, I think, the 5th highest OBP in the SEC. That's good. And then also, this is I think probably one of the better stats. They strike out less than any team in the league. So 68 strikeouts is the lowest number for a team in the SEC this season. That's pretty good. Again, it's a 9-game sample size, just going off of league numbers. But that's pretty good, I would say. Now, at the same time, I do agree, like, they got to be able to hit better with this. When the situation comes about, they got to get things done. I think back to the perfect example on Sunday. They were down by a few runs to Tennessee. It's like the 5th inning, right? And they had the bases loaded, nobody out. Perfect situation up. I can't remember who was – actually, I do remember. Jace Woida was coming up. He had just homered earlier in the game. And it's like, all right, put the ball in play. You're getting a run. And it's, I think, like a 5-1 game at the time. You're getting a run in, cut the lead down. You should be getting at most – 1 run, definitely need more after that. Probably 2 runs at the least. And then Kennedy Jones grounds into a double play because Woida strikes out, and then Kennedy swings first or second pitch and then grounds into a double play. Inning over. It's situations like that where it's like you don't even need big boppers in the lineup. You just need guys that are going to hit the ball in the air, fly out, sac fly, bring a run home, hit the ball to, if it's a left-handed hitter up, hit the ball over to the right side of the infield, make sure it's not a double play ball, get a run in. They've done a pretty good job of that this year, I will say, hitting sac flies. They have a lot of them, but they also, the singles are not going to work forever. It can, but if you don't have the guys outside of Petrie and Hall to kind of drive runs in, it's going to be tough to win games. And Paul said it perfectly after Sunday's game. You're never going to win against a team like Tennessee when you only score 2 runs. And I think the same can apply to this weekend as we kind of start to shift gears to the Mississippi State series here in a sec. Do you have any final thoughts on the offense or anything from Presbyterian?
No, the Presbyterians, you see that and you're like, okay, we'd love to see that kind of transfer over to the weekend. Easier said than done, but yeah, I just think the margin for error is so small when you can't hit home runs as a whole lineup that the issues are magnified, or the when it doesn't work out is magnified versus the single that brings home one doesn't get nearly the recognition as the double that brings home two. So they just need to find a way to put up some crooked numbers and put the pressure back on other teams. That way try to make some of these games not they can tie it up with one swing of the bat.
Yeah, definitely. And getting the win the other day was huge. Snaps a 7-game losing streak. You're 18-12 now, still 1-8 in league play, but you do have a very important road trip coming up here, hence the title of this live stream. Huge road trip coming up to Starkville. You're going to play Mississippi State, a team that, I phrased the question yesterday to Paul, that I'll get into in here in a second, that Mississippi State's been struggling, but he kind of disagreed in a way that, yes, they haven't won much at all. They're also 1-8 in league play. But you look at their schedule. They've played Texas. They've played LSU. They played Oklahoma as well, as Paul will talk about here in a second on an audio clip. But they've lost a lot of these close games that, all right, South Carolina got blown out against Arkansas. But they also played very tight games against Oklahoma and Tennessee. So they're kind of all in the equal same footing here. Here's what Paul Mainieri had to say about the Mississippi State series coming up, what to kind of expect from the Bulldogs.
They played Texas, top 5 team. They've played at LSU, top 5 team. And they played at Oklahoma. And we know what Oklahoma's like. So they played 3 tough teams just like we have. And they've been really competitive in most of their games. We've been really competitive in most of our games. They lost a 2-1 game to LSU, where with runners on second and third and 2 outs and a 1-2 count on the umpire called a clock violation and struck the guy out. Kid never even got a chance to compete second and third. So they've had some bad breaks, and they've got one of the most outstanding pitchers in the conference. The kid that'll pitch Friday night, and they're hitting over 300 as a team. So they're not going to be any walk in the park. If you've ever been to Starkville, Mississippi, and competed against Mississippi State, you would understand that that's the furthest thing from an easy game that there is. So, we got to be ready to go, and we got to play great and take it one game at a time.
So again, that is what Paul Mainieri had to say about traveling to Mississippi State this weekend, and it's going to be tough. Number one, just because it is on the road in the SEC, and no series is easy. Again, the record will say Mississippi State is kind of in a little bit of a rut right now, which they are. They got swept by LSU this past weekend, but a lot of these games, man, like I said, they've been close, and in South Carolina's case too, all it takes is one thing going different, and maybe you win these games. And with this Mississippi State team, I know from what I've seen on Twitter and stuff, just briefly looking, their fans are not happy with Chris Lemonis and the job he's done since winning the title a few years ago. But when you look at this series for South Carolina, just how important is it going to be for them to come out here, play well, and hopefully win a series here?
To kind of go what Coach had said about the Presbyterian, this is like the season, this for both these teams. And that's what I mean. That's what I'm trying to say about that is both these teams come in scuffling a little bit, and whoever drops this series, it's not over because anybody can go on a run in this conference. All these players are that good. They're SEC players for a reason. So any of these guys can get hot, but if Mississippi State drops 2 of 3 to us this weekend at home, their season's cooked. Because the nice part for our guys is we have played pretty much the cream of the crop of the conference. There are obviously a couple still tough series ahead, but we've definitely, gone to battle with the best of the best so far. But yeah, I mean, this is a pivotal series for both teams, and I expect the intensity to be turned up quite a bit, especially with those fans in Starkville. They're, like you said, they're not very happy. So this is a good weekend where if you can jump on them early, you can try to maybe shift some of the tide for those fans to where instead of cheering for their guys, they're jeering the coach or they're, the player they're kind of wishy-washy about. They start grumbling whenever he comes to the plate or, it's on the mound. Like, this is a good weekend. Like, Friday night's so important this weekend. If they can win Friday, they could sweep. Because again, with a team that's scuffling, a fan base that's clearly unhappy and has higher expectations, if you can go in there and take Friday night, then they could implode quickly.
Oh, totally. And I think I saw a stat that I'll get into another one here in a second. I was just reading like a Mississippi State story the other day. Like, if State loses on Friday, I believe it's their worst start to SEC play in program history, and that would be 1-9. So, look, you're right. The hole is already plenty deep for both of these programs, but I do feel like, honestly, like the odds are going to be stacked against both of them regardless of what happens this weekend. But the loser of this series, I think it's like you said, cooked. I think it's over for either team. Here's a good stat that I saw the other day too. Only one SEC team since 2010 has started 1-8 in a season and made the postseason, and none have gotten within 2 games of 500. Can you guess who the one team is that made the postseason?
Is it us?
Nah, well,
I would say,
it's Paul Maneri and his 2021 LSU team. So they started 1-8 and they made the postseason. So it's going to be tough, man. It is a deep hole you're in right now. But like you said, man, Friday is huge for this team. And if they can win game 1 on Friday, they got Jake McCoy going on the mound. And just looking at the pitching matchups here, I mean, you're going up against Pico Cone, left-handed pitcher for the Bulldogs, who has been, holy smokes, these numbers are way more insane than I thought. 4-1, 2.1 or 2.66 ERA, 40 innings. Get this, dude. You'll like this as a pitcher. 61 strikeouts, 7 walks.
Love it. I mean, I hope those numbers go, get a little closer after this game. But no, I mean, those are beautiful to hear. Those kind of that strikeout to walk ratio.
That's insane. I like 61 strike. Like I thought McCoy's been pretty good about the free passes have been a little bit hit or miss here and there, but his strikeout numbers have been high. This dude's ridiculous. So Friday's going to probably be the most important game of the series. I think you can win Saturday, and I think you can win Sunday. But Fridays might be the toughest game just from a pitching standpoint. And like Paul said, they're going up against their best guy in that game. And, I mean, I don't know, man. If South Carolina were to drop this series, it's just –
yeah, I mean, the fan base would have every right to start to check out. I hope they wouldn't, but they would have every right. And to go back, I mean, their Friday night guy has been so good that if you can go in there and win on Friday, I mean, you break that team spirit. They are looking towards, SEC. They're looking towards exams so that they can have a break. And then, they're not worrying about baseball anymore. I've not with our guys, but on just different teams, different places I've played. I've played on some teams that were bad. And once it gets to the point where like there's not much to play for, I tell you, the baseball is the furthest thing from their mind. So you go win on Friday, beat a guy of that caliber, where they're always expecting to win. They're going to pack it up for the weekend. They may win one, but you win Friday, you're going to win the series. I will boldly state that.
I will agree with you on that. And look, the fan base that's probably more pissed off, to answer this question here from EXO, it's probably Mississippi State. If this were last year, I would have said South Carolina because obviously the Gamecock fans were ready to let Mark Kingston go, and I don't think you're not firing Paul Maneri after 1 year unless something like diabolical happens this year where they just don't win another game. Then it's like, all right, like, so I think Mississippi State is ready to kind of let, like, at least the fans are ready to move on from Chris Lemonis and then go from there. But here's the other interesting question that we got here from Big Red. At this point, is South Carolina mainly playing for pride or to be spoilers for other teams? What do you think? Or is it even either of these? Because honestly, man, they're still playing for their season.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, these guys definitely still have postseason on their mind. They now again, you lose this. I think this is a great question next week if they lose this series. But I think for right now, these guys, they still have belief. Again, they took Tennessee and OU wire to wire. They outplayed those guys most of those games in those series. So like they know that they can hang with the best of the best. So I think they're still playing for their season. But I mean, personally, it would be pride. I could care less about the other teams. That was always my mindset. Like, I don't really give a hoot how their season's going. I'm here to do the best that I can to help our team win games. So I think, being in locker rooms there, there are plenty of guys that like, let's make sure we ruin this team's season. But for the most part, unless it's a rivalry team, like we're not going to play Clemson again unless it's postseason. We're not going to play, someone else. I think it would definitely be more playing for pride and these guys are trying to get paid. These guys are playing for future contracts, future draft picks, future NIL at this point. I'm not quite sure how that stuff works, but these guys are playing for things much larger than let's try to ruin this team's season.
Yeah, this is definitely a question for next week. If South Carolina were to drop the series this weekend, let alone be swept. If you get swept this weekend, you're done. Like, you're not coming back from what would that be? A 1-11 hole? You're not coming back from a 1-10 hole. Point is, you have to win the series this weekend. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no excuses anymore. You're not coming back from that. I don't even want to know what the odds are. I don't even think there probably are no odds of making the postseason if you start a season 1-10. So here's a good quote from Ethan Petrie, the last one we got play here today. From I asked him yesterday, what has this stretch been like for you guys from a mental standpoint? Because obviously the players see everything, right? They see what's going on out there, and they know they're 1-8 and stuff. Here's what Ethan had to say about how the stretch has been, kind of how he views it.
We've played 4 of the top, 6 teams RPI-wise.
Yeah.
Clemson, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Arkansas. That's a gauntlet right there.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting us ready for, what's coming up. And I think, we had opportunities to win those games. We had a couple of them. We could have won at least, I would say, about 4 or 5 of those games. And, we just couldn't pull through. And I think, now we're at the halfway point of the season. We start winning those games now. And we never lost confidence in the locker room. We never lost, our ability to, keep working and, staying positive. That's kind of what I try to preach to the leader in the locker room, just staying positive. And, we stay positive with our pitchers, stay positive with our hitters, and, everything works out. We got the win yesterday. So, it's a good streak to start.
Totally. And I agree with him on that. Like, you never know what can happen, man. It's baseball. You can win 7 in a row here, and you're right back in the thick of things. You win the I don't know if you win the fan base back because people have checked out. And, it's going to take a lot more than, a little stretch here to get this thing back on track. But you really do need to win the series this weekend, man. It's of the utmost importance. You'd love to sweep because then you go play Texas A&M after this. And I know you have the midweek game against Upstate, but just series general here. You have a very, very bad Texas team or Texas A&M team right now. It's also 1-8, and quite frankly, also seeing the fan base, they're ready to fire Michael Early too, who's in his first year.
I saw they were ready to fire him after that weekend series against Kentucky. They were, and that kind of got it into my feed based on the antics from Sunday. But no, I've seen a few places in Texas A&M Twitter that are ready to move on from a first-year head coach.
It's been rough, man, and injuries have been detrimental to them. But it's also just at some point, baseball is just you're going to lose games, and Texas A&M's lost a lot so far, and it doesn't get any easier because they go to Knoxville this weekend to take on Tennessee. So their season, in a nutshell, very well could be over after this weekend.
Yep.
Because if they get, I think they're going to get swept by Tennessee. Honestly,
Agreed.
You are not going to Knoxville. You may steal a game, but you are not winning a series against the Vols that are just insane. And my point is, April is much more manageable than March was. You're not playing Clemson. You're not playing OU. You're not playing 4 of the top 10 teams in the country in weekend series. That's not what you're facing. You get back-to-back road trips here to State and A&M. That's going to be tough just based on the fact that it's on the road. But these teams are beatable. We've seen it, man. They are beatable. And then you play Ole Miss, a top 15 team at home, though, which is it's sandwiched right in the middle. So, and then you get Kentucky to end the month. And I know going to Lexington hasn't been easy. But if you can get 2 series wins here, these next 2 weekends, maybe even a sweep, you're coming into that Ole Miss series like, all right, our season is a little bit back on track. We still have work to do, but it's a lot more manageable to get through this month with postseason aspirations. But it could also end here very quickly if you don't take care of business this weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, some of it is confidence, because again, these guys are playing the games well until it just there's a turning point in each game. Excuse me.
Yeah.
There's a turning point. It's been a turning point in each one of these games where if it goes South Carolina's way, we're having a much different tenor because again, we have played 4 of the top 6 RPI teams in the country, not in the SEC, in the country. So yeah, I mean, if a couple of these things, so all that say is you get some confidence. You use these next 2 weekends. Let's win a couple series. You have some confidence. Then you take that Ole Miss series, and you're like, all right, we've hung with OU. We have hung with Tennessee. We've won these last 2 series. We can go out there and go on a legitimate run to kind of get the season. Then you're playing for something more. Then you get to the postseason. Then everybody's record's 0-0, and you're really cooking with gas. But it is about 1 series at a time. Go out there, try to get back on track this weekend. Take that confidence you get from that weekend, and then kind of show you can finish these games. I think that's been the biggest thing. These guys cannot put away teams, and that's been a mix of bad defense, bad pitching, poor offense late in games. Like it's been a mix. So it's not all hanging on one set, one group, one set, one player. They just got to find a way to come together as a team and win one of these close ones to kind of have some confidence in because the team's built to play close games. Again, they're built. They're not going to blow teams out, especially in this conference. So to be able to kind of get that confidence and be like, all right, it's not in the back of my mind that, well, the last time we were here, this is kind of what, it's like, no, we're going out there. We're winning this game. We have confidence in what's behind us, what's in front of us, and we go out and take care of business.
And I'll let you kind of answer this question here to kind of piggyback off of that from Big Red. I mean, the issues that keep happening on the field, I mean, you just addressed what they are. Can you fix them, I think is the question. Because, I mean, you can only – You can fix mistakes like defense, I think. Like we've seen the defense be very solid for the most part this year outside of a few games where you are going to make errors. It's natural to happen. Defense has not been the issue this year for most part. The pitching, you need to find – I mean, I hate saying it, but like you have guys that can go out there and get outs. But I think you're still trying to find who your shutdown guys are going to be because I just don't know if you have one at the back end of the bullpen.
No, and I mean it is such a confidence thing. I remember in 2010, I had a good stretch until, funny enough, Kentucky in Lexington. But you have these stretches, and you feel like you can get anybody out, and then especially as a reliever, once that confidence is touched a little bit, then you're trying to find it again. And some of it needs to be some false bravado from some of these guys. I don't think many of these guys outside of McCoy have that personality about them. I'm not saying Jake's bravado is false, very much earned on his end. But puff up your chest a little bit. Just there's got to be a mindset shift, especially for this back into the bullpen. Especially Sweeney relies a lot on soft contact and ground balls. And, I think back to that OU game where the ground balls were the issue with the defense. But, some of these guys that go out there just fake it till you make it, man. If you just, it's just a mindset thing I see. And to the point, there's nothing you can do to fix it except play in the games and try to get it done. I think it's more mindset. You saw that this weekend with Tennessee. That's a team that knows no matter what, they are in a game and they can win a game at any point in time. And those dudes never look otherwise. Even when their pitching's getting touched up a little bit, I thought we swung the bats really well against their pitching this past weekend. But even with their pitching not being great, they didn't have a second thought. They knew that they could go out and win the game, and they did it. And you don't get the sense that these guys know they can do it. And I think some of that is just it hasn't broken their way in some of these games this year. So that's what I mean. It only takes one. It only takes one to get kind of that ball rolling. That's why I think that Sunday against Oklahoma or any of these games against Tennessee really could have been that catalyst forward. So, like I said, hopefully it's Friday. Hopefully it's tomorrow night, and that just kind of gets the ball rolling. And these guys, like, they can exhale and be like, yeah, that's it. That's what this feels like in the conference, and you can really build off that.
Totally right. I think you're hitting the nail on the head on that. And Friday, again, it's so important to win tomorrow. But let's start wrapping up here a little bit. Let's talk predictions for this series. As always, the key to the weekend, who's got to be kind of the X factor. And I'll start it off here just to get us going here, since I know you've talked a lot. Be ready for a breather. The more I think about it, man, like, I know South Carolina needs to win this series as bad as ever. Then again, so does Mississippi State. And we're going to learn a lot about, there's been a lot of separation in this league to where you have the top-end teams like Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU, Texas. And then you have the teams that are struggling. Like, there's really no in-between this year. You have Florida who's been bad. Mississippi State, A&M, Carolina has been bad. It's like you're either 1-8 or you're really, really good. And I just think this weekend's going to kind of determine, all right, who are these like middle of the pack teams? Like, can South Carolina be better than these bad teams that they're going to be facing here coming up? Or are they going to be that bad team that just cannot get out of the basement? And I think this weekend, I do think Mississippi State's going to win the series. I think they're going to take 2 of 3. Friday, I don't think South Carolina's going to win. That's just too tough facing a guy like that on the mound in Cone with his strikeout to walk ratio being ridiculous. And the number one thing that concerns me with this team is they don't hit for power outside of Petrie and Hall occasionally. Like, they hit singles. And then when they get guys on base, they don't drive the runs in consistently enough. And that is an issue in an environment where I don't know what to think of the crowd this weekend. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm sure Starkville, I mean, there's not much to do there. People are going to show up, I think, but one bad thing goes wrong. It's going to feel like South Carolina last year, where people are ready to get rid of Lamonis here. Like, all it takes is one bad thing happening to Mississippi State to kind of derail the weekend, in my opinion. But Mississippi State's a good team in that they've lost a lot of these close games, and they've got talented hitters on this team. They got a good pitching staff, I think. Can South Carolina get the job done in game one? I don't think so. I think they drop 2 of 3. They'll win one of these final 2 games. I think they win Saturday with Jarvis Evans on the mound, but I think I just don't see this team really going. I don't think they're going to make the postseason, honestly, at this rate. And but if there is an X factor to this weekend, like we mentioned way earlier in the show, who is going to get on base for presumably Hall and Petrie hitting 3 and 4 in this order. I do think it probably should be Jordan Carrion hitting maybe second in this order. I know Paul did say he's not sure about putting him at the top of the lineup just because he doesn't hit for power. But like most of these guys don't hit for power. Like he gets on base, he hits the ball hard, he bunts better than anyone. I really like him to potentially be one of those guys at the top of the order. And then just what was the other thing I mentioned? The key to the weekend, I guess, or whatever. Like you gotta be able to pitch. Have to be able to pitch.
Yep.
You're not winning games pitching like you did 2 weekends ago. The last time you were on the road at Arkansas, you will be crushed doing that. So you gotta. I mean, it's easy. It's easier said than done. You gotta just pitch well, hit well, play defense well. I mean, the recipe's simple. Go out there and do it, and we will. We'll see what happens, man. But yeah, I do see South Carolina dropping 2 of 3 this weekend. What about you?
Yeah, I think the optimist in me is I'm going to pick them to win 2 out of 3. Now that being said, I said earlier in the show if they win Friday, they're going to sweep. So maybe I should just stand on that and say, but no, I mean until you see it, it's hard to envision that type of weekend. And yeah, to your point, I mean, the biggest X factor is who's going to get on base in front of Hall and Petrie. What combination is coach going to throw out there, and will those guys step up and get it done? It's a coin flip. I think if they can do that, I think Hall and Petrie can maybe slug you to a series win. And yeah, I think Friday's going to be tough. We didn't talk about him on the show because we were talking about other things, but Jarvis Evans, shout out to you, my man. He's
been awesome.
Freaking shoved against the best team in the country.
Only one mistake when he gave up that home run, but other than that, he was solid.
That man has taken the most of every opportunity he's been given, and I have not met Jarvis. Maybe I will, if I come down for a series this year, but like, I have loved everything he's done, and that he deserves a shout out for that. But to your point, pitching's just got to be better. Pitching's got to be solid throughout. We can't have these lulls through the game where it just kind of falls apart, and then it's really hard to pick, to try to right that ship once that train's been rolling. So I'm going to pick them 2 out of 3. I don't know I think Jarvis wins on Saturday. So we'll see which way it goes after that. But yeah, I'm gonna say 2 out of 3. They kind of get back on track, and we're Mississippi State's gonna Starkville's gonna be ready to storm the field with pitchforks and torches, and we'll get out of there and head back home.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Winning on the road in the SEC is super, super difficult, and if they drop game 1, the series is not over. I mean, you got Jarvis going Saturday. I think he's going to do well. And then Sunday, TBA on Sunday pitching, and we know how that goes. And I thought Becker pitched well last week.
He did. He really did.
Until he got to the 4th inning, and that's just where, a team batting second time through the order is going to be able to pick up your stuff a little bit better. But I do think, he deserves another chance to go out here and pitch again. I think this weekend we will see if he does. Brandon Stone's got to pitch better. You got to really just get more out of your guys. It's what you're getting right now is not enough. And quick question here from Big Red. I mean, with pitching, is it bad matchups or bad mechanics? I think it's just more so the matchups. I think the SEC is just really tough, and the hitters you're facing, you make one bad pitch to these guys, and it's going a long way. We saw that with Jarvis the other day where he gives up that 3-run homer, and it's one mistake that he made, pitched well the rest of the way. And they got to avoid that also. They got to avoid these games where they make one mistake and it's like, that's where you lose. Because the Tennessee series, Brandon Stone giving up the 2 homers with the lead, that was issue number 1 in an otherwise very clean game for South Carolina. Friday's issue, and I really like what he's done this year, but Jordan Carrion making that error so early on in the game pretty much led to 5 runs being scored.
Yeah.
And what should have been an easy double play. Well, I don't know if easy is the right way to put it, but just a double play ball that was hit to him. So you avoid these little mistakes that you make every now and then, and you're going to be fine, I think. But also, Mississippi State is probably going to be hungry to get a series win this weekend. And we know how important this weekend is for both teams in terms of trying to get back on track and survive, I guess, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's poor execution is the better way, is a good way to put it. The guys, I don't see them every day, so it's hard to know whether their mechanics are a little off, and that very well could be a thing. But poor execution. They just, it needs to be better. And to what Jack said, the guys that are guys have to step up, be a dude, step up. There's not enough of that on the pitching staff right now to where you kind of pick up the slack. It's too much piecemealing. And when one guy's not good, when you're doing it that way, it just kind of trickles down, and it's hard to recover. So Jake McCoy, go be a dude. Jarvis, keep being a dude. Becker, build off those 3 innings, go out there and be a dude, and Stone kind of be a weapon out of the thing. I just think that your top 3 or 4 guys on staff have to be top 3 or 4 guys. They can't act like, or they can't they can't pitch like, middle of the staff guys. They got to pitch like top end guys, or you're going to keep running these, we're in these tight ball games, and the lowest mistake just, set you back.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's how, going all the way back to the preseason, that's how Maneri thought the season would be defined by, what are you going to do in these one-run games where look, South Carolina struggled in these games last year a little bit, and this year we're kind of seeing the same. So see if they can get it going here. But first pitch tomorrow night, 7 p.m. All these games are going to be on SEC Network Plus, by the way. And then Saturday will be at 3. Sunday will be at 2 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be there providing all live updates and coverage, and, being out there in Starkville. Long road trip ahead tomorrow morning. Friday night, Jake McCoy going up against Pico Cone for Mississippi State. Saturday, Jarvis Evans, as I mentioned, going up against Evan Sierra for Mississippi State. And then Sunday is TBA day. We'll see what that means. Last week it meant Becker starting because Stone had already thrown the other day. We'll see maybe what happens with that. And then Mississippi State will be throwing Carson Ligon on Sunday, who is 2-4 with a 7.33 ERA. So opportunities there. You got to be able to take advantage of it. So that's going to do it for us for now on this edition of GC Live. I'll be back here on Sunday for Sunday Reset, breaking down the series, whether it's the first 2 games of the series for now, probably the first 2 games, since it's an afternoon game and I'm hitting the road after the game. So, and then we'll be back here next week, and we'll be talking about the trip to Texas A&M coming up. So for Ethan Carter, I'm Jack Veltri. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always, and we'll see you guys again soon. Bye.
See y'all next week.